Last one, Harry and Meghan, cancelled again.
Oh dear. There's trouble in paradise. Do you have access to the world's smallest violin? Because Meghan Markle's big commercial ambitions, Paul.
10:15 a.m. today. London, 14 degrees Celsius. While the world watches the heavy iron gates of Buckingham Palace for a grand parade that will never come, the real history of the British monarchy is being rewritten inside room 1844. There are no cameras, no Netflix crews, and no transatlantic press releases.
And apparently the Queen of Fashion, Anna Wintour, of course, the great icon of magazine publishing, Vogue, you name it, right? She's the woman that Meryl Streep is based on in The Devil Wears Prada.
There is only a single sheet of vellum, a heavy red wax seal, and a signature that changes everything. As of this morning, May 5th, 2026, the era of the quiet Earl is over. James Alexander Philip Theo Mountbatten Windsor has officially accepted the style of His Royal Highness and the title of Prince. If you are watching this, you are witnessing the most significant structural shift in the House of Windsor since the abdication crisis. This is not just a birthday gift or a ceremonial promotion, it is a strategic deployment. For the past 5 months, the palace has been an echo chamber of whispers. And today, the silence has finally broken. Before we peel back the layers of this high-stakes royal gambit, make sure you are subscribed to this channel with notifications turned on. This is an evolving story, and you need to be here when the next seal is broken. To understand the weight of 10:15 this morning, we have to look at the mechanics of power. This was not an automatic transition. Under the letters patent of 1917, James was entitled to this rank the moment his grandfather, King Charles III, ascended the throne. But for years, he remained the Earl of Wessex, a title that offered a shield of semi-privacy. Even on December 17th, 2025, when James turned 18 at Bagshot Park, the world expected an announcement. It never came. For 140 days, James held the power to become a prince and chose to leave it on the table. Think about that. In an age of instant fame and digital branding, why would a young man of royal blood refuse the highest style of the land for nearly half a year? A senior palace aide was reportedly overheard during the South Africa tour saying that James doesn't just take what is given, he waits until he is ready to master it. That is the philosophy of his mother, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, who has spent 18 years raising a citizen prince. She was once recorded telling a close confidant that her children must know how to queue for a bus before they ever learn how to walk a red carpet. Today, that grounded upbringing meets the cold reality of constitutional duty. By signing that document in the office of the Lord Chamberlain, James has triggered a series of legal and security mechanisms. This is the how it works of royal activation. Step 1. The King issues the letters patent. Step 2. The Home Office and the Metropolitan Police's Royalty Protection Command immediately upgrade his security status to Category A. Step 3. The sovereign grant is adjusted to reflect his new official duties. But why today, May 5th? Why not his birthday? Sources inside the Golden Triangle suggest that the decision was finalized during a private meeting at the Sandringham Extended Conference earlier this year. It wasn't a demand from the king. It was a voluntary submission from the nephew. While other members of the family have spent years demanding titles and security, James has spent 5 months proving he could live without them, only to accept them when the institution needed his stability the most. The fracture we are seeing today isn't a break in the family, it's a break in the old narrative. The monarchy is no longer just the firm. It is becoming a lean, high-performance machine, and James is its most advanced component. He is the first royal to be raised in the shadow of the social media age, while being trained in the silence of the old guard. If you think this is just about a new name on a website, you are missing the forest for the trees. This is about the heir to Philip's legacy, standing up to support the heir to the throne. If you support this new direction for the monarchy, leave a comment below with the word duty. Let us know what you think about this 5-month delay. Was it a stroke of genius or a sign of hesitation? The morning fog in London is lifting, but the mystery is only deepening. A young man who refused to be a prince for 18 years and 5 months has just stepped into the light. Why now? What was said behind the closed doors of room 1844 that finally convinced him to claim his destiny? Stay with us, because the paper trail leads directly to a cold river in Scotland and a promise made to a dying duke. The real story is just beginning. To understand the prince who emerged today in room 1844, you have to understand the woman who dismantled his throne before he was even born. Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, executed a social experiment so radical it bordered on institutional heresy. While every other branch of the family was clinging to the magic of the HRH style, Sophie and Edward made a choice that left palace traditionalists reeling. They gave their son nothing, no princely title, no automatic deference, no invisible wall of royal exceptionalism. This was the birth of what insiders now call the identity stealth mode. It was a tactical blueprint designed to produce a royal who could survive the 21st century by first surviving the real world. The mechanism was clinical in its execution. By stripping away the Royal Highness style at birth, Sophie achieved the ultimate strategic advantage. She bypassed the crushing lens of the global paparazzi. Without the HRH tag, James fell into a lower tier of the Royalty Protection Command's surveillance. He was no longer a target, he was a ghost. This lack of high-level security wasn't a neglect of safety, it was a gift of field experience. It allowed for real-world infiltration. While his cousins were being whisked behind tinted glass, James was taking public buses. He was standing in queues. He was navigating the mundane, frustrating, and unpolished reality of British life. Sophie knew a fundamental truth that many in the House of Windsor had forgotten. A royal who knows the price of a gallon of fuel or the delay of a commuter train possesses a level of empathy that cannot be taught in a palace. But there was a deeper, more psychological layer to this stealth mode. It was about building an internal duty debt. In the traditional royal model, a child is told they are special from day one, creating a mindset that the world owes them recognition. Sophie reversed the polarity. She raised James to believe that because of his lineage, he was born with a massive debt to the nation, a debt that could only be repaid through specialized competence and absolute service. It wasn't about being born to rule, it was about being trained to contribute. The result is a Gen Z royal running on a completely different operating system than his predecessors. This isn't just theory, it is etched into his academic records. While the royal tradition usually leans toward the safe havens of history or geography, James Alexander chose a path of pure logic. His university transcripts, which have been closely guarded until now, reveal a specialization in systems engineering. He doesn't look at the British monarchy as a romantic fairy tale. He looks at it as a complex, high-stakes system that requires optimization, data-driven decisions, and structural integrity. By delaying his activation as a prince until today, May 5, 2026, Sophie ensured that James wouldn't be corrupted by power before he understood the value of a hard-earned degree. He is a royal who has been burned in by reality for 18 years. He didn't just accept a title this morning, he brought a technician's mind to a 1,000-year-old institution. But here is the question that should keep every royal commentator awake tonight. If James was raised to be an ordinary citizen, why was he the only one Prince Philip chose to mentor in the deepest secrets of the Scottish Highlands? What did the old Duke see in this stealth prince during those long, silent hours on the riverbanks? The answer doesn't lie in his engineering textbooks. It lies in a set of lessons that were never meant for the public ear. The transformation of James Alexander from a quiet teenager into the prince we see today was not an accident of birth. It was a deliberate, multi-year transfer of a specific, ancient philosophy of power. While his mother, Sophie, provided the shield of a private upbringing, his grandfather, the late Prince Philip, was forging the sword. To understand the steel in James's character, we have to look at the banks of the River Dee at Balmoral, a landscape of freezing water and absolute silence. This is where the authority staircase becomes undeniable, Between 2018 and 2020, the official internal schedules of Prince Philip recorded a staggering 42 private sessions with his youngest grandson. On paper, these were listed as fly fishing excursions. In reality, they were masterclasses in institutional survival. Analysts from the Intelligence Corps, who have studied the behavioral patterns of the senior royals, point to a specific technique Philip transmitted to James. Static observation. It is the military-grade ability to remain physically still while the mind processes every shift in the environment, reading the wind, the current, and the hidden movements beneath the surface. Philip wasn't teaching James how to catch fish, he was teaching him how to endure. The mechanism at play here is stoicism, a refusal to react to external pressure, a trait that has become the monarchy's most valuable currency in an era of radical transparency. While other members of the family were processing their emotions on global platforms, James was being trained to become a monolith. Philip knew that the modern monarchy didn't need more celebrities. It needed a silent engine. The first time the world witnessed the success of this training was on September 17, 2022, inside the vast, echoing chamber of Westminster Hall. As the nation mourned Queen Elizabeth II, the grandchildren stood vigil. James was only 14 years old. For 15 minutes, under the relentless glare of global television cameras and the crushing weight of historical grief, he did not flinch. He did not blink. He did not shift his weight. Veteran royal correspondents, who had watched decades of ceremonies, were left speechless by the breakpoint of that moment. A boy of 14 should have shown some sign of fatigue or self-consciousness. James showed nothing but absolute disciplined concentration. He was not performing. He was inhabiting a role. This was the discipline Philip had honed on those long, cold afternoons in Scotland. The world saw a grieving grandson, but those who understood the mechanics of the crown saw a soldier being activated. This stoicism is the granite foundation that makes today's announcement so potent. By accepting the title of Prince on May 5, 2026, James is officially bringing that Philip-era discipline back to the front lines. He is the direct inheritance of the Duke of Edinburgh's structural force, a young man who knows that in the House of Windsor, silence is not a weakness, it is a weapon. But as the new prince prepares to take his place beside the king, a new question emerges from the shadows of the South African tour. If James has been trained to be the ultimate silent guardian, what happens when he is forced to step into the void left by the family's most public departure? How does a young man who excels in the shadows handle a role that was once occupied by the most charismatic and most volatile member of his generation? The strategic map for the next decade is already being drawn. And the first stop is not London, it's the Cape of Good Hope. The British monarchy does not merely fill gaps in its ranks, it evolves to eliminate vulnerabilities. For the past 6 years, a shadow has loomed across the Atlantic, cast by the loud, commercialized narrative emanating from Montecito. The departure of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex created more than a family rift. It created a functional void. The global public was led to believe that the House of Windsor had lost its youth, its charisma, and its connection to the modern world. But as of this morning, May 5, 2026, that narrative has met its surgical end. The rise of Prince James Alexander is the ultimate transatlantic counterbalance. While the Sussex blueprint was built on what analysts call high-volume victimhood, a strategy of noise, televised grievances, and the commercialization of royal status, James has spent his 18 years perfecting the low-signal service model. The contrast is not just personal, it is a clash of two entirely different philosophies of power. One side seeks to be a star, the other seeks to be a pillar. We saw the first definitive proof of this shift in March 2026, during James's debut global engagement in South Africa. This was the moment the counter-move became visible to the trained eye. Traditionally, a royal visit of this magnitude involves heavy motorcades, flashbulb-heavy receptions, and carefully staged emotional interactions. James Alexander broke the script. He reportedly refused the standard heavy security escort, opting instead for a single unmarked vehicle. He arrived at the Table Mountain Environmental Research Station not to wave from a distance, but to work. For 4 consecutive hours, James sat with top-tier conservationists and data scientists, hunched over complex satellite telemetry and ecological mapping. There were no cameras allowed inside the briefing room. There was no social media takeover following the event. He didn't ask for a microphone, he asked for the data. This is specialization over celebrity. He was demonstrating that a 21st century prince isn't a decorative ornament, but a functional asset. This is King Charles III's silent ultimatum. By elevating James today, the king has answered the question that has plagued the palace since 2020. Who replaces Harry? The answer is not a substitute, but a strategic upgrade. James is version 2.0. He possesses the military-adjacent stoicism of his grandfather Philip, the real-world groundedness of his mother Sophie, and crucially, an absolute lack of desire for the spotlight. He is the first member of his generation to realize that in an age of overexposure, mystery is the ultimate form of prestige. The palace insiders call this the Montecito antidote. If one branch of the family proved that royal status could be leveraged for media deals, James is proving that it can be leveraged for institutional stability. He is a young man who has watched the wreckage of celebrity-driven royalty and chosen the path of technical expertise instead. He doesn't want to tell his story, he wants to do his job. But this isn't just about a rivalry between cousins. It's about the architecture of trust. By signing the letters patent this morning, the king has signaled that the inner circle of the monarchy is now locked. James has been vetted by reality, trained by the old guard, and deployed as a silent guardian of the crown's future. But as he steps into this new rank, a specific alliance is forming behind the palace walls, a partnership that will define the next reign. Behind the scenes, the Prince of Wales hasn't just found a cousin, he has found a lieutenant. And the nature of their secret collaboration is about to change the way the world views the throne itself. The Prince of Wales is a man of immense capability, but until this morning, he has been a commander without a reliable second-in-command. In the high-stakes architecture of the British monarchy, the sovereign-in-waiting requires more than just family. He requires a lieutenant. For 6 years, following the high-profile exit of the Duke of Sussex, William has navigated the turbulent waters of institutional reform in near isolation. The departure of his brother was not just a personal tragedy, it was a structural collapse of the support system intended to carry the crown into the next half-century. But today, May 5, 2026, that void has been permanently sealed. The activation of James Alexander as a Royal Highness is the final step in what palace insiders call the lieutenant mechanism. This was a 3-step integration process designed to give William the partner he was denied by history. The first step was recognizing the isolation. After 2020, the inner circle was empty. The second step began quietly, behind the scenes of the Earthshot Prize. James was not brought in for a ribbon-cutting ceremony. He was appointed as a technical advisor. Because of his specialized background in systems engineering, James provided the analytical rigor that the project's high-tech environmental solutions required. He wasn't there to wave. He was there to audit. The third and most critical step is James's role as the bridge. The modern monarchy cannot survive on tradition alone. It must interface with the sectors that define the 21st century: global technology and national defense. James Alexander is the first royal in history who can sit in a room with Silicon Valley CEOs or Ministry of Defense strategists and speak their language without a translator. He is the crown's digital native, a royal who understands infrastructure as well as he understands protocol. We have found the authority staircase in the form of a leaked strategy memo from Clarence House, dated April 20th, 2026, at precisely 1600 hours that day. A meeting was convened to discuss the digitalization of royal assets. This wasn't a discussion about social media posts. It was a high-level briefing on the security of the Crown's digital infrastructure and the modernization of the Duchy's technical portfolio. James Alexander didn't just attend this meeting. The records indicate he led the briefing. He was already operating as William's right hand 15 days before the world knew he would become a prince. This alliance is the real reason the letters patent were signed at 10:15 this morning. By accepting his new rank, James is not just taking a title, he is accepting a commission. He has become the primary support pillar for the future king. Where previous generations saw the spare as a source of competition or volatility, the William-James partnership is built on a shared technical vision for a streamlined monarchy. William provides the vision, James provides the systems. But as this new power duo takes shape, the world is beginning to realize that the House of Windsor is no longer playing defense. They are not just reacting to the crises of the past, they are engineering a future that looks remarkably different from anything we've seen in the last 1,000 years. The acceptance of this title is the closing of a circle, but it is also the opening of a new, more mysterious chapter. If James Alexander is the silent guardian of the crown's future, what is the ultimate goal of this lieutenant? The answer lies in the verdict of history and a specific, long-term plan that reaches far beyond the borders of the United Kingdom. As James steps further into the light, we are about to see exactly what Prince Philip's ultimate legacy was designed to achieve. As we stand here on the afternoon of May 5th, 2026, the signing of the letters patent is no longer just news. It is a permanent marker in the history of the British monarchy. But the question remains, what does the activation of Prince James Alexander actually look like in the years to come? To understand the endgame, we have to look at the scenario tree, the probabilistic models that Palace strategists have been running for years. There is a 10% probability of what analysts call the reluctant withdrawal. In this scenario, James Alexander finds the glare of the global media, even in its modern, streamlined form, to be incompatible with his nature. He accepts the title today but retreats into a private, high-tech career within a few years. However, the probability of this is exceptionally low. Why? Because Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, has spent 18 years preparing him for this specific pressure. He wasn't raised to be a celebrity, he was raised to be a structural support. He doesn't fear the spotlight because he has been taught how to stand in it without letting it blind him. The 30% probability is the conventional path. James becomes a standard working royal, taking over the hundreds of small-scale patronages, attending ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and standing on the balcony for trooping the colour. He becomes a reliable, if uninspired, member of the firm. But this scenario fails to account for his specialised education. You do not spend 4 years mastering systems engineering, only to spend 40 years unveiling plaques. The 60% probability the scenario most likely to define the next decade is the rise of the STEM prince. In this reality, James Alexander does not do PR. He does solutions. He becomes the first royal to manage a technical portfolio for the sovereign. He transitions the monarchy into a social enterprise model, a lean, efficient organization that uses data and engineering to drive the king's charitable initiatives. James becomes the man who audits the Earthshot projects, the man who optimizes the duchy's carbon-neutral infrastructure, and the man who bridges the gap between the ancient crown and the cutting-edge technology of the future. He is the ultimate lieutenant because he has the analytical mind of an engineer and the fierce, protective heart of a royal guard. The reason this 60% scenario is so compelling is because it is the only one that ensures the monarchy's survival in a skeptical age. James Alexander is proving that royalty is not about the magic of a title, but about the merit of the individual. He is the answer to every critic who has ever called the institution a relic. But as the sun sets on his first day as a prince, the most shocking development is yet to come. Do not look at the new title on his stationery. Do not look at the change in his security detail. Instead, look at his schedule for tomorrow morning. At precisely 9 o'clock on May 6th, James Alexander is expected at the Ministry of Defence. Our sources confirm he has just been granted a specific, high-level security clearance once held by his grandfather, the late Duke of Edinburgh. James has been given access to the Philip Archives, a collection of private records, strategic correspondences, and institutional blueprints that have been under lock and key since 2021. The game is no longer about who is in the family, it is about who is running the system. Are you ready to see a royal family that has stopped waving and started operating? The story of the prince who stayed is only just beginning, and the deeper we go, the more the palace tries to pull the curtain shut. If you want to see what is hidden behind the numbers, you cannot afford to miss what we found. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications. Next week, we are going deep into the paper trail. We have obtained a breakdown of the specialized trust funds and technical portfolios that the palace has been quietly moving into James's name records they never intended for public consumption. Comment below with the word Guardian if you're ready for the full investigation. The silence is over, the prince has been activated, and the real work begins tomorrow.